And hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Nerdy Over 30, the podcast where we talk about movies, games, and everything pop culture. As always, I'm Warren, your host. Here with me are my co-hosts, David and T-Bud. How's it going, guys?
Going on?
Everybody,
And today's guest, you might have seen him on Vice's Local Legends. He's the Hacky Sack Guy, Derrick Fogle. How's it going, Derrick?
Doing great today. How y'all doing?
We're doing pretty good.
Amazing.
So like what we said before we recorded, man, I saw your Viceland segment a couple of days ago when it came out, and I was just something about you, man. I was totally in love with your whole story and everything you do, man. So I was like, I got to reach out to this guy to see if we can get him to tell us more of a story.
Yeah, those guys did a great job on that piece on me. I'm just so happy with it. Very talented crew came out and filmed me and interviewed me and put that all together, and some other local guys contributed some footage to that. So it all came together. It was really, I mean, just how could I be happier with a piece like that, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, it really was amazing.
yeah, Vice really does phenomenal stuff for sure.
So, for our viewers that don't know who you are, could you tell us what you do?
Yeah, sure thing. My name is Derrick Fogle. I am the Hacky Sack Guy. I was inducted into the Footbag Hall of Fame in 2005. I used to hold a Guinness World Record in speed kicking. I hold a current Guinness World Record in distance traveled in 1 hour while controlling a footbag.
Wow.
And I am basically a local legend on the University of Missouri campus because I've just kicked there for so many years, ever since I came to town, as a matter of fact.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
That's crazy
that's definitely.
to have.
So you said came to town. Where are you from originally?
Well, when I met Hacky Sack, my one of my parents lived up in the mountains of Colorado. When I was up there with my brother going to a party in a party house up in the mountains of Colorado, and there's some guys out front of the house playing hacky sack, spilling all over beer all over each other, and laughing and having fun. And I was like, they invited me to join, and I'm like, well, okay, I'm going to be here for a while. So I just stepped in the circle, and I sucked at first, swing and a miss, but it was, compared to other experiences I've had trying to do any kind of physical activity stuff, there wasn't any scoring, there wasn't any points, there wasn't anything. It's like you dropped it, you picked it back up, you started going again. It was just, it was really simple, and it was really, nobody discouraged me at all. Everybody encouraged me. So like this real fantastic experience for me. And I was like, oh, I got to get a hacky sack to practice to get better so I can actually contribute to these hacky circles. And so I finally, had to save up, wait till I got my next paycheck and run off to the store and buy my first genuine hacky sack brand foot bag. And the rest is kind of history. I never stopped.
That's awesome.
So when did you decide, man, I think I can do this competitively?
Well, when I was living in Kansas City, I'd been kicking for about 2 years, and I got wind of somebody that was holding a hacky sack tournament. I had never heard of such a thing before, but, I was like, well, I'm, going to go to this hacky sack tournament and check it out. And I ended up winning the freestyle competition with basically a pair of these gigantic, really high flying clippers. And ended up winning like the freestyle championship and doing pretty well in the consecutives, and ended up meeting a lot of people at this tournament that were going to end up being friends and part of my life for quite a few years after that, really. But that's, I went to my first tournament that I heard about and did really well, and so I kind of dove into the competitive side of footbag.
And it's crazy because I'm all about different subcultures, and I love any kind of really out there unique subculture. I do cosplay, and I've always been into juggling and magic and stuff like that, but I never knew there was such a big culture for footbag.
Oh, I mean, it's a small niche thing, and it seems like it used to be bigger in the United States in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, but a lot of the culture has moved overseas now. It's actually pretty big overseas, but there aren't that many tournaments or things going on here in the States anymore.
Well,
And what
what's interesting, I'm sorry, Dave. What's interesting that like you guys were talking about Footbag. I didn't know Footbag was like the official name, perhaps, for Hacky Sack. So I was
Yeah,
like,
everybody,
Footbag, but it was like the same thing. That's awesome. I didn't even like. I thought Hacky Sack was just like a pretty awesome thing, but it being called Footbag, like being official, like
yeah.
yeah, it is. Everybody calls it colloquially foot hacky sack because that's
yeah,
the common brand name
exactly.
of it
Like
that
a hobby
everybody
name.
knows. Technically, the sport is called footbag, and when you're in the professional side of it and the competitive side of it, you tend to refer to it as footbag as a professional. And then when I'm out on the street kicking with people, I just call it hacky sack because that's what everybody else calls it. As I made a point about that in that Vice video that I'm bihactual. I kind of use either term
Yeah.
interchangeably, even though to a certain extent they mean something different. The hacky sack is the more original circles, kicking thing, and
Yeah,
footbag is the professional competitive side of it, and they are pretty different.
yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah. Well, you see, I'm sitting here acting like I know what I'm talking about, but I also learned that it was called Footbag watching your
Yeah,
Vice episode.
I'm like, what are you guys talking about? What's Footbag? Like,
So for our listeners, can you name some of the major differences between, you did say there's differences between hacky sack and footbag, right?
Well, look at it like this. And a liar uh, uh, brought this to me once. He said, "Is this kind of like the difference between blackjack and go fish? They're both played with the exact same deck of cards, but overall there's some very different stakes and importance or whatever attached to a game of go fish, typically played with kids versus a game of blackjack in a casino. I mean, and that's the same difference. They're all played with the same object. It's all the same thing. And to a certain extent, the difference between the two words is just it's just dividing. It's a divisive thing to think that it's not all the same thing, but there are some aspects of it that the professional side uses the term footbag, and the casual side of it uses the term hacky sack. And I kind of live in both worlds because most of my kicking is out in public where people aren't professional footbaggers, they're just casual bystanders. So I always use the term hacky sack with those people because that's what they understand. And then I talk to my buddies on the freestyle footbag list and I call it footbag.
uh, so you distinguish yourself with other people in different groups.
So, I mean, I'm sure you get a handful of reactions when you say footbag to people. People are like, what are you talking about? How do you deal with those
football? People? You mean football?
I mean, I always try to throw both terms out. If I'm going to throw one out there, I try to throw both of them out there so people kind of click, oh, he's talking about the same thing.
Yeah. And I mean, was that the first sport you tried, or was there others like that you kind of tried out, you got into it, and you were like, nah, this isn't for me?
Well, I mean, I've never been like physically talented as a kid or anything like that, but I've always been a fidgety kid, and I actually tried out for basketball and I tried out for baseball. There wasn't soccer back when I was a kid, really. But I was always, to a certain extent, those, the sports that where, it's team sports and there's scores and there's, investment in whether you play well or not. It was, I was actually, pretty commonly discouraged from playing, more traditional common sports as a kid. And so that's why the hacky circle, where there wasn't any rules, there wasn't any points, there wasn't any competition, really was a really transformative experience for me. So that, and that is and it's kind of ironic, here's the table flip, that it's the non-competitive part of hacky sack that drew me into it. But then I ended up getting into competition, and it's really through competition where, I, go through the trial of fire and find out, what I really can and can't do and what my limits are, and have to, come to terms with who I am and what I can really do, and, that kind of thing in my life. So, and that's something I learned through competition. And I basically grew up in this footbag community of, all these people. We used to all travel around to the same tournaments and play in the same tournaments, meet each other all the time. We've all gone on to have families and move on and do other things now, and pretty much, and a few of us still kick. I'm one of the few that really do it out in public as kind of a spectacle or a freak show.
Now, when did that start? When did you say, "Hey, I'm going to go out in public with my speaker and just play footbag in front of
Oh,
people"?
it started right away. As soon as I actually went to a competition and I experienced, the pressure, the psychological pressure of competition, and actually having to sit in front of judges and be judged for what you do, I pretty much decided that I wanted to play footbag out in public, in very public places. The first place I started kicking was out in front of the J.C. Nichols Fountain in Kansas City, where, it was like, that's the most, driven by photographed landmark in the entire city. That's where I chose to play, because I would have people watching me to steal my nerves for competition where people are watching me. So that's one of the reasons I did it. And then the other one, of course, because of the fact that, footbag was kind of my salvation as a teen. I thought it was going to be the world's salvation. And so I really went out there, to try to convert the world to hacky sack, as strange as that sounds. So it's like I went at it pretty hard.
I mean, watching that episode, I haven't played hacky sack since high school, and it made me want to go buy a hacky sack.
Yeah, like
And try to
Lehman would
play
have.
Dude,
hacky sack.
hacky sack will always welcome you back.
Yeah.
And so I know you mentioned earlier, going back to your history of playing hacky sack, or what's the other term?
Footbag.
Footbag. I got to get used to saying that, footbag. You said you got into it because it was not competitive. Talk to us about that thought process of when you found out, hey, this is getting competitive, and how did you decide, you know what, I'm going to keep going with it. I want to compete.
Well, like I said, when I played kind of in isolation long enough, and, went at it hard enough and got good enough, that when I finally found went to my first competition, I actually won a couple of awards. And so I was, when I stepped into the arena, I was kind of already a champion. Who can turn that down?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to turn that down. So I was, and it was another thing, because it was something for me to do, because footbag was so much of what I, my life at that point already, that I was like, oh, I got to get into this competition and, go to these competitions and practice and train. And, it's like, and, I kicked so much, I'd go out every night out, to a basketball or tennis court near my house and kick, as long as, it wasn't too cold. I'd kick in my garage when it was too cold to kick outside. It's like, it's always scrambling for places to kick in the winter. But, I just, I went at it really hard for 15 years before I realized that while it was my salvation as a teen, it wasn't going to be the whole world's salvation. So, that's when I kind of changed my message. By then I had, that's about the time I moved to Columbia, Missouri, 28 years ago now. And, one of the first things I did was, I was so into footbag at the time and promoting footbag that, it's like the first thing I did was scour the town for what I thought were cool places to play hacky sack. And I got to this place called Speaker Circle, and I was like, oh my God, this is it. It's like this, visually appealing, circular arena. It's about the right size. If you're really good at playing footbag, you can cover about that much territory. It was kind of central to town. The students would be there. I didn't really realize the power, the tie-in with the students when I started kicking there. And it took, so many years for, me to become like this. It took generations of students for me to become like this legendary figure on campus that, the first years would hear about before they even saw me sometimes. But that's how I became the speaker circle hacky sack guy, is just because it's literally the coolest, nicest looking place in town to play hacky sack out in public. Even after I stopped competition, I just never stopped kicking out in public because I had gotten so used to it and I liked it, and I still wanted to do something to contribute to letting people know that hacky sack still exists and that you can still play hacky sack. So that's why I still kick out in public today. It's just, it's at this point, I just get so much enjoyment out of it. And, the energy and the love and the support I've gotten from the students in the Mizzou community has just, given me so much more, just, I don't know, magic, whatever you want to call it. It's just given me so much more of everything to like keep going and like keep doing it. And just, it's like it's this really wonderful, magical, spiritual thing for me at this point to get to go out and play hacky sack.
Yeah, it's crazy. It seems like you bring so much joy to everybody in your town.
Absolutely.
Like, just hearing what everybody had to say to you, everybody had to say about you in the episode was amazing. And everyone's just so like, "Oh, it's the hacky sack guy." Like, we're never sad to see the hacky sack guy. Like, everyone's always so pumped.
And I'm sure you made a difference during COVID. I saw that you were still going out there, which was amazing, and it was a breath of fresh air, especially when everybody was in lockdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up especially when they closed campus and chased everybody off campus. I did this series of videos where, it's like the campus is empty, but here comes the hacky sack guy. Hacky sack and by was posting those for a while, but and to be honest, it was actually kind of rough being out there playing hacky sack, wearing a mask for however many months. I'd have to bring a dozen masks with me because I'd saturate them every about 10 minutes. I'd have to, use another one, go dry them out, stuff like that.
Absolutely.
That's why I don't kick with a shirt on normally, is just because I saturate shirts with perspiration, and who wants to go, do this real intense body motion thing in a soaking wet t-shirt? Not me. It's that, just, and it, especially the bag is so frequently so close to my body that especially a wet t-shirt slopping around might end up, hitting the bag and knocking it off course. So, there's technical reasons not to wear a shirt when I play. So that's, why I don't, but then it's also the, just the perspiration factor. I can soak, 4 to 6 shirts an hour.
Wow.
Who wants to, buy those shirts, bring them to me, then take them home and wash them all when they're done, when I'm done with them, because I'll go through a half a dozen shirts easily while I'm kicking. That's why I don't wear a shirt. It's just, there's a lot of reasons, but it's kind of funny because that offends the prudes. And it's almost like the Legend of the Sith in one of those Star Wars movies where there's always two, and there's always a couple of people, whether it be family or somebody or your people you work with or something like that. There's always people that are going to disapprove of it, and it's it's usually people that want control of you, and they try to get between you and whatever you love to gain control of you. So there's always somebody that's trying to do that. For so many years, I think I've actually kind of neutralized all my opposition at this point, but there's always been a struggle against just a very few select people that have disapproved of what I do. For some reason, the shirt is a real common, the shirtlessness is a real common thing for people to criticize. But there's always been that, resistance, and there's always been that persistence from me that I'm not going to let anybody beat me down or chase me out or keep me from doing this. I'm going to keep doing it because I love doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you touched upon that in the episode, and in my head, I'm like, who would like not like what you're doing outside? Like, who would say anything bad about a guy out there putting smiles on people's faces, playing hacky sack with people?
Yeah. Well, there's always that one guy. Like that. The saying.
Yeah.
There's always that one
Yeah.
guy. That's it. It's like
There's always that one guy, and
Yeah.
you gotta let, if you put yourself in the crosshairs like I do, you have to deal with that. And you can't, like I said, I just, I ignore the whole thing as much as I can, and I just keep doing what I'm doing because I love doing what I'm doing, and I don't want to engage those people. So, after a while, if they can't get traction, they go away.
Yeah.
That's good, man. And
Well-
how often do you play hacky sack a day? Like how long? How often? Like talk to us about your day to day.
24/7.
Okay. I actually have some specific goals to play like 200 hours worth of Footbag, and I am ahead on my goals right now. I have 97.75 hours on the books right now. I do keep track of it. If I could get my camera, I have a calendar on my wall right here that I keep track of my Footbag hours with, and I track my bicycling too. I actually am kind of into metrics. One of the reasons I film myself when I play Footbag is because I produce videos in a fairly consistent format that I can go back and extract performance metrics out of. So I can keep track of my performance over time. And I got like 12 years worth of video out there. Wow. That I can, basically investigate and get performance metrics out of. I've gone through some of them, but it's a pretty daunting task to like go through all of them and do that. But, if compared to 10 years ago, when I was a lot more, saddled with, being a dad and having kids at home and stuff like that. My kids are all grown and one of them's out of the house, and, they're all adults now. They don't really need, constant attention or anything. So I've been able to literally double my physical activity over the last 10 years from, 5,000 kilometers a year on my bike and, somewhere around 100 hours of Footbag a year to, now I'm doing 10,000 kilometers a year on my bike and 200 hours of Footbag a year. Plus I'm swimming with one of my sons now too. So I'm like swimming a couple times a week.
Wow.
So I go hard.
Yeah.
Man,
Really,
you're,
you're putting all of us to shame.
Yeah, you're definitely making me feel bad about my health choices.
I just went exercising around my neighborhood for like an hour, but that's all right, whatever.
Well, like I said, I've always been that super fidgety kid that couldn't hold still in class. I could never hold still. I'm always shaking my leg or something or moving around. I've always been that kind of person. And, once I was old enough to like get on a bicycle and take that energy I had and go somewhere with it, boom, I was gone. And that, I never looked back. It's like, and it's one of those things too, where, if there's any one person that could match me and, my persistence and my energy, it's probably my brother who I talked about in the video, who's recently passed away. And I swear, and I don't know how to explain this, but I swear that I feel his energy in my body now. And it's like this really cool, incredible feeling to feel that energy in me. And I know it's there and I can't explain how it is, but I know it is. I can feel it. It's like I've been playing in public so long, and I can feel the energy of the people around me, when I'm in speaker circle and the kids are going through the circle, I can feel their energy. And it's really incredible because so many people give me so much energy. And it's like I feel that energy and I can draw on it and use it and stuff, and now I feel this new source of energy in my body that's like there anytime I want it. It's really incredible. But I've always gone hard, and it's like I'm in really good shape for a 50, nearly 57, nearly 58-year-old guy.
Yeah, man.
You know, just because I've never, I've one of those people who I've always used it, so I've never losed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So talk to us. I mean, oh, sorry, Worm.
Oh, you were probably gonna ask what I was gonna ask, so you go.
Probably not. But so my question was, I mean, you have high intensity cardio workouts. Talk to us a little bit about your diet, because that you got to take on a lot of carbs to keep that up. That's a lot of
Yeah, my body has always been a carb consumption machine. My body is very comfortable consuming carbohydrates, using carbohydrates. And I've been this way like almost all my adult life. I call myself a near vegetarian. I live basically a vegetarian lifestyle. We rarely have meat in the house to eat, and we actually cook and eat most of our meals at home. We don't eat out very much. But it's like if I do go out to eat or something, I might have a meat dish just because I'll consider it a treat. I'm not, it's like I'm not there's a lot of reasons I'm a vegetarian, from everything from the carbon load that meat production takes, to the treatment of the animals, to the fact that it's not, excess meat consumption isn't really that good for you. There's a lot of reasons to be a vegetarian, but sorry, my throat's getting a frog in it because I'm talking so much.
No worries.
Sorry, take your time, man.
Take a breather.
But yeah, I eat, like in that video, breakfast cereal in the morning. Almost every morning I mix up my breakfast cereals,
which is awesome, by the way.
And I actually and I use soy milk or oat milk. I don't really take a lot of dairy besides cheese anymore. I kind of use cheese as a meat substitute almost, I think, sometimes. But I love cheese. I mean, the guy in Wallace and Gromit, and his fascination with cheese, that's me and cheese, I swear. Lunch is usually something like a egg and cheese bagel or something like that, or sometimes I make these what I call pita pockets. I'll just fold up a tortilla and jam it down in my toaster and toast it, and then you unfold it, and you like slap a veggie burger in one side and like a little bit of salad or whatever, some veggies you got on the other side, and you fold it back up, and boom, you're done. It's food.
I think you're onto something there. Damn.
And then for dinner, my wife usually cooks dinner, and she makes a variety of stuff, but it's all, it's generally, heavy grains, pasta, stuff like that, tacos with veggie crumbles, stuff like that.
Nice.
So that's basically my diet. And then I am like a sugar addict. I've never met a sugar molecule I didn't like. So that's my real weakness is anything with sugar in it, candies, sweets, that kind of thing. I cannot stay away from sugar.
For our listeners, this legend right here had 3 cereals in the same bowl. What's your go-to cereals? Like I couldn't like ignore the fact that you mixed 3 different cereals in the same bowl in the video.
Wait, actually,
I actually put like 6 different cereals in that bowl. They only showed 3 of them.
Yeah.
But see, I layer my cereal usually on the bottom, some kind of like floating cereal, usually, and my wife buys a lot of brands that you probably don't hear about, like Mother's Best. The cinnamon things that I mentioned in the video are called from a company called Mother's Best, and they're really good. But it's usually like sometimes like the peanut butter O's down at the bottom, and then usually some of the little wheat things, whether they're sweetened or not, doesn't really matter much. And then, sometimes Rice Krispies to even it up. I put the floating stuff on the bottom, and then I put the heavier stuff on top, and, so then, it's usually like a layer of cinnamon crunch, and then a layer of, something, some whatever else, like large flake cereal I've got. And then I always top it off with the granola.
That's awesome.
Jesus Christ.
Well, I'm not nerding out, but I legit mix up 3 cereals also. I use Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Chex, and Honey Bunches of Oats all the time.
Oh yeah,
All the
yeah, I
time.
mean, I'm there, brother. It's good. It's,
Yeah. I mean, it's fun.
So
it is.
So
It's,
boring.
I mean,
Cereal is so boring,
we,
but it's well make it fun.
we know how to play in our food. And, I'm a guy that loves to play in my food. And, it's like, I know some people get really offended by people playing in food, but I know how to play in my food and I like to play in my food. And I, cheer on anybody else that also knows how to play in their food and can do it and likes it.
Hey, it's your food, man.
Yeah, man.
Nobody should worry about what you consume.
And
You
we are
know,
all about
I'm
it.
I'm sorry. I make shapes in my mashed potatoes. I do.
So, yeah, have a good diet. You're swimming, you're riding your bike, but you are putting a toll on your body, I'm sure, doing all that kicking. Are you also going to the gym and doing a workout?
I mean, my what I do is my workout. I don't really, it's like I've got cycling, I've got footbag, I've got swimming, and then of course I've got stuff like yard work and, maintaining a house and things like that, which can beat you up pretty bad sometimes. So, I don't otherwise go do like strength training or any kind of anything else. And one of the things that I've come to understand, because I've injured myself. I've twisted my ankles really, really bad a couple of times playing hacky sack back in the day. And have had to go through recovery. And one of the things I've found out about things like physical therapy, stuff like that, is that there isn't anything that can do anywhere near as much to my body as playing footbag does, or also cycling to a certain extent. And that if I can't teach my body to do those things right without hurting myself, then no amount of therapy is going to offset that, because the hacky sack is so intense, it just overwhelms anything else that I could possibly do from a point of physical therapy. So, it's an incredibly intense thing on my body. And I'm lucky because, I've had, like chondromalacia. It's where the backside of your kneecap starts roughening up. And then, when there's a lot of pressure put on it, it hurts so bad, you just immediately collapse and fall to the ground. And I have to fight that. If I sink too far down to my knees, they start hurting. So, if you look at me playing footbag now as opposed to old videos from 20 years ago, you see that my, how far I bend down on my knee has reduced by, a couple of inches, literally. And that's something that I can also look at when I look at, old videos of me that I've posted versus current. I can see, well, how far, how much bend is in my knee over time. And that, gives me that kind of information about my body. But, I'm lucky that, I have chronic ankle pain problems, but I manage them pretty well. And one of the things, I'm one of those people that doesn't really engage the medical industrial complex very much. I mean, obviously I got vaccinated as soon as I could get vaccinated, because you're an idiot if you don't.
Yeah.
And I get, I'll go to the doctor if I think I've got an infection that needs, some kind of, penicillin type drug or something like that. But otherwise, I pretty much maintain my own health. And it's like I stay away from the medical industrial complex as much as I can. So, I've developed all my coping strategies for all my symptoms pretty much myself, just, because like I said, the proof is in the pudding. If I can play footbag and not hurt myself when I play footbag, I'm doing it right. And I'm actually, keeping my body strong. If I'm hurting myself, I have to modify what I do in that thing. I can't offset it by some other, action.
Yeah.
No, I feel that's very true, because I feel sometimes even they definitely like to jump the gun doctors and tell you, oh, well, you shouldn't be doing this, or you can't do this anymore. Like
Yeah.
I broke my ankle. I've skateboarded most of my life. I broke my ankle skateboarding, and they automatically told me, "Well, you can never skate again." And it
Yeah.
like almost killed me. But then I went and skated, and my ankle was stronger than ever after that. So I learned not to listen to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my ankles are as strong as they've ever been, I think. I'm always probably more protective of them now than I was when I was in my 20s, but it's like I feel good. I've beat the living piss out of my body and I still feel okay. It's like the body is designed to take this kind of physical activity. If you stay active, I do have an arthritic disc in my lower back, and I get sciatica sometimes. And, it's worse when I don't play footbag because my back muscles weaken and then it doesn't do as good a job keeping my spine in alignment. So, it's like footbag is my physical therapy, even though it's really hard on me at this point. It's like when I'm done, I have to pretty much go home and, hop in the shower and then lay down and sleep for a couple of hours because, it's that hard on me.
So aside from hacky sack, what is it called?
Footbag, damn it.
Footbag. I'm
Footbag.
gonna get it. I'm gonna get it. At the
Come
end of
on.
this, at the end of this episode, I'm gonna get it. But
Bag of foot.
aside from footbag, what other hobbies do you have? What
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, the other big one obviously is cycling. I ride my bicycle a lot, and I'm not a photographer, but I'm a very persistent idiot with a camera. I've done a couple of like time lapse videos where, I went down on it there. If you search YouTube for Flat Branch Creek picture a day, you'll find some year-long daily time lapse photography I did on this little creek by our house. And now for the last 6 years, I've been riding my bicycle out to this gigantic bur oak tree that's about 10 miles away from my house. That's like a state champion tree. It's the biggest, oldest bur oak in Missouri. It's like the second biggest bur oak in the entire nation. It's like this huge, incredible, just legendary sanctions, legendary tree. So I ride out there once a week and take photographs from like 15 different stations around the tree. And, it's like it takes a long time doing it once a week, but I'm slowly building a time lapse of that tree's history and its health over time. It's a 400-year-old tree. It's slowly dying. So to a certain extent, I'm documenting it's this, legendary tree's decline. But, that's one of my projects. That's some of my other projects. Like I said, I ride my bicycle a lot. I get real, I've always got a camera on me now that cell phones have cameras. So I'm pretty persistent with the camera. Don't call myself a photographer because I don't really know anything about photography.
Oh, man,
Oh, that's why I said hobby.
I know, right?
Yeah, but
If you're good.
and I do, for profession, I do computer work, and I'm kind of a computing geek and stuff like that. So, like I said, swimming. I go swimming with my son. That's my one arm day. It's like for me every day is leg day in the gym. But that's my 1 or 2 arm days a week. I go swimming with my son.
Dave's favorite, right, Dave? Leg day.
I know that's the day he hates the most at the gym, leg day.
Yeah.
David always
Big
gets
relationship
excited
with
for
the
leg day.
So also in the episode, there was a local band called Post Sex Nachos
Ooh.
that you talked about. And
I love Post Sex.
We will give a shout out to Post Sex Nachos. We'll also try and put a link in the bottom to some of their music. I listened to them after I watched the episode. They are amazing.
They are absolutely amazing.
And how'd you get
college kids? Can you believe how good they are for college
they sound
kids?
amazing. I was like, wow, these guys need a record deal or something over here.
I mean, they cover a lot of different sounds, but they've got their own sound. They've got, I talked to them that, they're very collaborative about their songwriting. They all put they all write those songs together very collaboratively, and they're really amazing. You know, those guys are Mitch, just you know, he can make that guitar do anything he wants. It's so cool.
Are they on Spotify? I'm Spotify Post Sex Nachos.
Yeah, it's just Post Sex Nachos
really
on
good.
Spotify. They're
How
out
did
there,
you-
and they love, you know, they love getting the thing. You know, they're actually the first band that ever had me up on stage, play hacky sack with them up on stage as like stage entertainment as part of their act.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to do it a second time now, and that's like my ultimate dream, is to be able to like do something like that. Be, you know, because I love kicking to live music more than anything, and then to get to actually get up on stage and perform up on stage with them is just the most coolest treat, the biggest honor I can ever imagine. And so I'm gonna start being able to kick up on stage with these guys every now and then when they're doing local shows and I can make them.
So how'd that even come about? Like, how'd that involvement even happen?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna ask.
Well, I mean, they're students at Mizzou. They know me. They know the Hacky Sack Guy. You know, and they've, you know, they really respected me. And you know, it's like when I found out about their music, I was like, hey, this is really good. And I started playing their music all the time. You know, it's like they're, you know, start letting me know they're there through Instagram or whatever. You know, I see a tweet from them or something, and I, you know, get interested in them. And so, you know, we just kind of developed this bromance with, you know, between them and me. And you know, it's like one guy that the bassist in the band, Chase, he actually was doing, you know, he spent a stint doing school tours. So, you know, he'd come by and I'd be in speaker circle playing hacky sack when he'd be bringing these like school tours or the summer welcome tour with all the kids by speaker circle to introduce them to me and stuff. So, you know, but they, you know, and then, you know, it's just, they're so good, and I was just like so attracted to their music, and you know, started using it a lot because, you know, otherwise I have copyright issues when I, you know, play into, you know, any random thing off Spotify. Sometimes, you know, YouTube blocks it or Instagram takes it down because of copyright issues. But you know, when I'm kicking to their music, I don't have to worry about that. They're happy to have me put their music up on a YouTube video.
That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
So it definitely sounds like a win-win relationship there.
Yeah. And I think they've gotten a lot of exposure from this Legends piece, and I'm really happy about it. Those guys deserve every bit of success that they get. I mean,
cool.
you know, if this Legends piece ends up being no more than just a springboard to advance these guys' music career, that is fine with me. That is what I want to happen.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, and I saw that you're the album cover.
Yeah,
that's one of the best album covers ever.
You know, when they first approached me about this, I'm like, you guys are crazy, but I'm not going to stop you. You know, and I thought they'd eventually pull it, but they never did. They published the album with my face on it, and it's really cool. And I'm so honored to have my face on that album because it is such an incredible album. All the songs on it are really wonderful. Awesome. And so, you know, it's like I've like been immortalized as this demigod on this cover of this really cool album by this, you know, up and coming band that I think is really going to make waves in the future.
Yeah, that album cover, I was like, wow, that really is like a very magical album cover. The way they
legendary.
did your photo.
I mean, what it is, legendary.
Yes, it is.
So, do you think you inspired anybody to pick up the sport?
Of what?
I mean,
David, what's it called?
Hand
Footbag.
What are you doing? Oh my god! Footbag. Jesus.
No, I was literally just messing around.
Derrick, I'm sorry. On his behalf, I'm sorry.
No, and it's fine. It's you know, it's fine if you call it hacky sack. I know what you're talking about. I
want to call it the competitive name.
I'm sorry. What were we talking about?
We got sidetracked.
Oh, we were talking about have you inspired anybody to pick up the sport?
Well, I mean, over 40 years, it's like I've had a lot of people that have, come and kicked with me. And, it's like other people that have, I've turned on to Footbag. I mean, I've, uh, my wife started kicking with me because we started dating and I was already playing Footbag, and she set a Guinness World Record and still holds it.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. But, there's like a couple of other guys that have been, ended up being big in the Footbag community, spent some time, kicking with me when they were younger. It's, it's like, although, to be honest, I really don't know where all the seeds I've planted have gone or whether they've grown. I've so many people have seen me play Footbag, and so many people have played Hacky Sack with me that, I've had to come to the terms that they're not all going to go on to be like these Hacky Sack, aficionados or whatever. It's fine for these people to just be casual hackers and, spend a year or two hacking with their buddies in a circle and then move on. What's the harm in that? It's like there's, well, anybody, that's got that kind of drive like I did, and like, the other people that have gotten into the competition, if they have that and feel that spark, that same kind of spark that I felt, and get really into it, then yeah. But I'm not going to expect, I'm just going to expect to have fun playing hacky sack with people when I play hacky sack with them. I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to convert anybody anymore. I've spent a lot of years, training, doing that kind of promotional work, and to a certain extent, down in the trenches, teaching people how to play Footbag, running tournaments, doing, running a Footbag club and sending out newsletters all the time to keep people interested. I've done all that. At this point, I'm more like one of those, big, huge corporate advertisements that are just like these, idyllic scenes of families doing something together, and at the very end it's the logo that pops up, and it doesn't really have anything to do with anything. It's just like this feel good, deal. And to a certain extent, I think my promotion of Footbag is kind of morphed into a more, abstract thing. To me, it's kind of interesting because if I find a hacky circle in town and I go step into that hacky circle, I kill the hacky circle, because, all of a sudden there, it's, I'll do a trick and then everybody's like, holy shit, and they leave. And I've killed more hacky circles than I can even count. By, when I was a competitive player and I was like, I'd step into the circle and I'd start doing tricks and I'd be like, it's called Footbag, not hacky sack, and that's, I would basically being an asshole to people, and I've killed so many hacky circles doing that kind of thing. So, to a certain extent, every now and then I'll, drop into a hacky circle for a few minutes if I see one, maybe. But, for the most part, I see hacky circles around town every now and then. I know of a couple of groups that have kicked or have kicked or are kicking, but I actually leave them alone because I don't want to, I don't want to step into their little thing. I mean, it's them and their friends, and that's how it was with me when I began. I'm just going to let them have their fun. I don't need to invade their lives just because they play hacky sack too. If they want to come to me, they'll come to me at this point. And I do have guys that, this one guy kicked Finn, he's in a couple of the recent videos I've posted, or actually I'm still waiting to post one of them. But he's been kicking with me for a couple of years, and he's really talented and he's really dedicated, and he's getting really good. He can do tricks, leg overs, mirages, uh, you know, butterflies, osis, all, he can do a bunch of different moves and he's really good at it. And so, I kind of call him my bigger, younger me, because he's bigger than me and he's younger than me. But, he's like training to be the next Speaker Circle Hacky Sack freak show.
Yeah.
Wow, man. And I also think the other real gift of you doing this is in a day. I mean, you said you do computers as your career. In a day and age when everyone's on a phone and this, I think the gift of giving somebody something to do that is not on their phone is amazing in this day and age.
Yeah, you can't hacky sack and use your phone at the same time.
Yeah.
Unlike driving that everybody does, you know.
I think it's good for people to step away from the electronics every now and then and do something like that.
It's kind of funny because when people start kicking with me, I've seen multiple phones come out of people's pockets and tumble to the ground. Luckily, I've never seen one break.
Well, that's good.
So you mentioned. Oh, sorry.
No,
You
go ahead,
mentioned
go ahead.
you messed around with computers or something like that of that nature, and then you're into you're so athletic and you're into sport, exercising and going out. So how did that? I mean, what did you study in school, if you don't mind me asking?
I mean, when I was in uh first in like uh late grade school, there wasn't middle school back when I went to school. There was just grade school and then junior high and then 4 years of high school. And when I was in junior high and early high school, I was hell on wheels. I was really uh getting into a lot of trouble, doing a lot of pretty troublesome things, that kind of thing. So I don't know, I kind of lost the thread of what I was talking about. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
No, so I was saying, what did you study in school? Because I mean, you were
Well,
into sports and stuff, and you're athletic. But you mentioned computers earlier, so I was wondering what
Where did the love of computers come?
Yeah.
well, I mean, ever since I was a little kid, I've been, fascinated with electronics. I mean, when I was like 8 years old or something, I took like this 4x4 sheet of plywood and, wired up all these, this huge circuit board on it with all these wires and batteries and lights and switches and things. I've always been, fascinated by, I've always been a geek. I've been fascinated by physics and, computing and the natural world and all that kind of stuff. So when I was a kid, it's like whatever I could do, get my hands on like mechanical stuff, whatever I did. And the when I when I was after I got into a whole lot of trouble in my sophomore year of high school, and I basically got kicked out of a little town in Kansas called Bonner Springs and moved to Lawrence, Kansas, to live with like my sister and brother-in-law to try to finish up my school.
Yeah.
Got into Lawrence, Kansas, and they had an electronics, it was a big school and they had an electronics class. So I was like, I was, get in that class and I'm just like, I love this class. And they had stuff like swimming. So I got to do swimming classes. I got to do some stuff that, it wasn't, it was a lot richer environment than what I was in Bonner Springs, Kansas. And I had these, this class, and you had to do, it's only like the top 10% of each first year electronics class got to go on to be the second year. And of course I made that cut. And, the second year of that electronics class was basically us sitting around running a repair shop for the school. The office would bring a coffee maker down to us and we'd take it apart and fix it and put it back together as a class, or we'd work in little groups or something like that. And so, that kind of gave me a footing in that kind of stuff. So then, I was like, when I got out of high school, I went into junior college and tried to get an associate's degree in electronics engineering at the time. And so, I did really well in that too. And so I was able to get out of that and get into get in kind of the basement of, the current, modern technology. First doing, supporting printers and stuff like that. I'm really good with mechanical stuff. It's like anything mechanical, I can take it apart, I can fix it, I can put it back together, that kind of thing. So I've always had this, innate, mechanical skill from that standpoint that led me to working with, printers and then getting into computers. I saw some of the very first IBM PCs and IBM Apple Macintoshes that ever rolled off the assembly line.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I used to actually do chip level repair on IBM or Apple IIc computers. We'd track down which chip, get the solder guns out, unsolder the chips, solder them back in. All that stuff, just throw away and buy another one now. But that was my young career. And that's, because of the fact that I'm like this computer hacker, and I of course got into the programming side of it and doing databases and things like that. So, I've always been this like computer hacker guy. And then, I'm also this hacky sacker. So that's how I ended up coming up with my user ID. It's the Leet hacker spelling of hacky sacker. H4X354X0R. It's pronounced hacky saxer, but it's how you would spell hacky sacker using the old 1970s Leet hacker speak.
I did see that on your Instagram.
Yeah.
I was kind of confused. Like, what does this mean?
What?
Yeah, I was like,
and it's kind of.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was actually like, is this the right Derrick Fogle? What's
You
this numbers?
Well, the funny thing is because it's a really unusual and very unique user ID. I've been able to register the same user ID across every social media platform basically that there is. I mean, back in the day when I first got it, there were so many different social media platforms, and all the newspapers had their local blogs, and I was keeping track of them. I had like over 100 that user ID registered on over 100 different sites as a user at some point. And then of course the collapse came and everything all collapsed down into one. And now that user ID that used to be in literally over 100 different places is now only in like a dozen places. And that's how consolidated the user authentication on the internet has gotten. It's gone from hundreds down to like a dozen different places that actually bother with that kind of service.
Yeah.
Now, again, I hope we're not keeping you too long, but we can ask you questions all day. The Guinness Book of World Records, how'd that come about? When did you go, hey, you know what? I think I'm good enough at this point where I think I'm capable of breaking some world records.
It's actually kind of a long story. If you guys got a few more minutes,
we have plenty of time.
We have plenty of hours.
But, I mean, it's really, I lucked into that deal because basically Guinness was already running a kind of a mashup. They'd already done several of these where they're doing a mashup of, what can you do with this other sports object, distance travel with this other sports object in an hour. And they'd already done several of them. And there was a guy out in Las Vegas putting together a tournament, a hacky sack tournament out there that was in conjunction with this whole, I'm trying to remember what it's called, some kind of like games expo or and they had so many different things. They had jugglers, they had card gamers, they had game gamers, they had cornhole, they had the hacky sackers, they had weightlifters, they had so many different things. And Guinness actually sent a whole contingent. They sent like six crew members from their home place out in London out to Las Vegas because they, there were going to be records broken here, and they wanted to bring their people in. And so because they were doing the mashup, they actually mentioned, that particular thing to the tournament director. He put it out on one of the Hacky Sack blogs, and I was like, I've always had this special thing with my knees, and I've always been, fairly good using my knees and doing that kind of things, and I'd actually kind of dabbled around in it before. So when I heard about it, I was like, I'm
gonna do it.
And so and I, and it was interesting. It's just one of those things where they wanted somebody to try this, and I had a chance to try it, and I had enough kind of background, I already had the kind of this innate skill. My particular style was very conducive to this kind of thing. So I was like, it was only about a month before the actual event, I was finally like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm buying my plane tickets. I'm flying to Las Vegas. I'm putting my reputation on the line for this. And I, really started practicing it for serious. And I ended up injuring one of my groin muscles really bad. One of the first times I was out there, really practicing it, and had to nurse that along. And it's like the last, nearly 2 weeks before the event, I basically couldn't, work on my endurance, keep doing it and work on my endurance, because I had to let my muscles heal. So I went in there, with a impaired, endurance, but at least my muscle held out for the entire hour. But that is definitely the hardest thing I've ever done with a hacky sack in my life, by quite a long shot, I think. I mean, the first half hour went pretty good, and I was on a pretty good pace. I was doing about 6 kilometers an hour for the first half hour. The second half hour just destroyed me. I went from under 5 minutes a lap to almost 6 minutes a lap, running on this track. It was just, man, that second half hour, it's like your body just starts giving out on you. You're going and you're going and you're going. And, I remember when, it's like, I didn't think I was going to make it, because I calculated how far I had to go around the track, in the first lane. And I was shy of that. But what I didn't realize is that I ended up having a conflict with somebody that was already running in the first lane. And so I moved over to the third lane. And so I was doing this entire thing in the third lane. And the third lane is just enough farther that, I thought I didn't make it. And he called 10 seconds, and I'm like, thinking that I'm like, no way I'm going to make that 5, because we decided that I had a 5 kilometer minimum. If I couldn't do 5 kilometers, at least it wasn't even good enough to be a Guinness record. So I had to do 5 kilometers to get in the books at all. And I thought I fell short of it when I was done. I was like, he called 10 seconds and I'm like, a quarter of the way, it's like I had to have been almost another half lap around the track, according to my calculations, to hit 5 kilometers. And I was like, I was fried. I was just like, I'm done.
Yeah.
It's time, So, but then we ended up, and I was like, well, we talked about it, and we're like, well, it was the third third lane instead of the first lane, and it is farther. And we calculated it out, and sure enough, it's 5,053 meters, and I passed the, I'm over the threshold, and yeah, I did it. I got that record.
Wow, that is insane. I mean, it's hard enough. It's hard enough going around the track just regular, but then having to bring your knees up that high every time.
Yeah, it at least doubles the amount of energy you have to burn to move forward. And I think since then I've gotten an even more efficient, faster running style that I could probably get closer to 8 kilometers with. But at this point it would be so hard to actually make another attempt, because then they had their adjudicators there. It just took one guy, who happened to be Glenn Carday, the executive editor of the entire Guinness records book, was there, and he ended up being the one that came with me to adjudicate my record. But he was out there, and he was like, this is good, and that's all it takes. We had the whole thing on film, but he was out there, he saw me do it, and he said, this is good, and that's all it takes. Now I'd have to submit all this film and have people tracking me, and have a lot of different, it would be really difficult for me to meet the criteria to send them stuff that they could remotely look at it all and say, okay, yeah, you set this record. I am going to try to sanction them for a fastest 1 mile, because I think I have the resources to actually do that and possibly set another record, in that the school usually does this like fun 1 mile inclusive excellence run where, it's like, it's just a 1 mile run. They have the course really specifically, measured out. They actually have chip timing. I'm pretty sure I could get a couple of guys on electric longboards and cameras to follow me the whole way. And that's probably all it would take, the combination of, the chip timing and a couple of guys on longboards following me with video and some witness statements. And at this point, I would have hundreds of students that would sign something and say, yeah, I saw the Hacky Sack Guy do this. So I think I might actually be able to meet the threshold required to actually set another world record. So I'm thinking about trying to sanction them to allow this world record. Of course, it's going to be somebody easier for somebody else to beat too, because a mile isn't anything like doing an hour. A mile is achievable, and I think there's other guys that could probably beat me in a mile. Supposedly one guy did a test hour run and got like nearly 10 kilometers. Really good guy, but he was like, I swear to God, I am never going to try that again. He like, you can keep that.
Real, recognize real.
Well, man, I hope you're able to set that up and get that world record going.
Yeah. I mean, from here on out, it's like, what other goals can I set for myself, and I do have, I have specific goals. I'm still working on trying to hit 100 consecutives, 100 or more consecutive 3-ad moves in a single string without breaking it. And that's like a very technical thing, when I talk about Footbag and then I start talking about 3 ads and 2 ads and this, that's the technical measurements of, the tricks you do. It's like, how much score does a camel in ice skating get? How much score does a Mirage in Hacky Sack get? They all have these like specific score values, and ad system is how we keep track of that. But it's like I have these goals to kick a certain number of hours a year, hit a 100 contact 3-ad rally. I've been for years dreaming of hitting an entire song end to end, just a natural whole song without doing it, without a single drop, and that's really hard to do. And I've had dreams of this for years, and I finally did it to one of Post Sex Nachos songs. And it's just like, it's the most coolest, like exciting thing. It's up on YouTube. And it's just so funny, the end of it. I was so excited. It's just like I couldn't contain myself, because I'd been trying so many years to do that, and I finally done it. I got it on tape. I'd done it before to another one of their songs, but my battery in my camera ran out halfway through, and I didn't get the whole thing on video. And I was like, no. And I never thought I'd do that again so soon, but I did. So now I've knocked that off my bucket list. Now I got some other things to do.
So was that the moment in the Vice special when you got really excited and said, I did it?
Yeah, yes, that was the end of that rally.
Yeah.
Nice. And it's for anything you do, very important to keep a goal, because that's what keeps us going, right?
For sure.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, I set goals, and I use them as motivational tools, but I honestly am pretty sure that I would play Hacky Sack quite a bit without any measurements or anything. I just, I love to play Hacky Sack. I don't have any other excuses for doing it at this age. I really don't. Yeah, it keeps me healthy. I would do it if if it were bad for me. It's an addiction.
Yeah.
It's
so
it's I've made the most of, I feel like I got lucky because, I've always had this, like I said, this intense energy drive, this fidgetiness. And, I met Hacky Sack, and it kind of met me, and we were just like, and it's like, it's given me this, rich life. And that's one of the messages I try to give to the students when I'm out on campus. Like it's a notorious J school, so students do interviews on me for their class projects all the time. And one of the things I always try to tell them is that, at one time I thought hacky sack was going to be everybody's salvation, and you got to play hacky sack, and at some point, I'm like, okay, it's my salvation. It's not going to be everybody's salvation, but you got to go find your hacky sack. You got to go find something that's to you like hacky sack was to me, that you can pour your heart and your soul into it and keep doing it like your whole life. And when you get to my age and you get those rewards because you've poured so many hours into it, you get this, this well of this wellspring of incredible, uh, affirmation out of it. It's really something. So if you read that book, love languages, work has always been one of my love languages. It was my dad's love language. He worked really hard for his family. I work hard for my family. I work hard, and it's only been a few years ago that I've had this epiphany that all the time that I've spent playing Footbag is essentially love that I've shown myself, and that's one of the things that makes it so powerful to me, is that it is like the end result of this lifelong self-love that I for a long time I didn't really realize I was giving to myself, but I did. And that, that's a really powerful thing. And I want other people to feel that and experience that. It's like, you're young, you can make those choices, you can pour yourself into something, and you can get the same thing out of it that I get when people see me out there. I have a really good rally and I'm like, yes, and I just like yelling and screaming, I'm so happy. And people see that and they realize that, it does bring me a great deal of joy to do, and that's why I do it. And that's one of, that's, I think, why people are so willing to accept me and let me be the hacky sack guy, is because that love for that thing, and what it means to me, and that just like spiritual effervescence, the people feel that, and it's energy that comes from me, and then it's energy that they give back to me, and it's like this symbiosis of this, being part of this community that, no matter how weird you are. I mean, a shirtless hacky sack guy out on campus is weird, but it works because it's, somehow I guess it's genuine enough.
Yeah. Man,
It's a freak show, but it's a pretty genuine freak show.
Oh yeah, it's not
weird is what keeps life fun. Like I feel like
Yeah, it is. I mean,
normal is boring. Who wants normal?
The weirdness is where it's at, and it's like there used to be so many more freak shows in Columbia and around campus. A guy that used to do the traffic direction dance out on one intersection every afternoon, and there was a unicycle guy on campus for years and years, and there have been other hoopers and other flow art people that used to be on campus more often. But after 25, nearly 30 years, I've outlasted them all. They've all moved on, gone somewhere else. And, we're waiting for the next weirdo to start being a freak show again. There's some guy that dresses up in a suit and plays guitar around campus sometimes. That's pretty cool. I need to find him and kick to his music sometime.
Whatever collaboration.
It's funny though. Usually towards the end of our show, I always ask what message you got for the listeners. But I mean, what you just gave us was.
I think you pretty much answered like everything that we ever wanted.
Yeah, it's a find your hacky sack. Find something that you can pour your heart and your soul into, and don't let it go. And you will reap your rewards in the later life, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I know we will all definitely take that to heart here. I mean, I guess that's what we're trying to do with our show here, is the same type of message that you're telling us now.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at you know, and I talk a lot about, you know, kind of giving this message to really young, you know, college age students, really young kids. And, you know, here we are, nerdy over 30, you know, we've got a life established. We've got other stuff going on, you know, our lives are full. We got a lot of pressure on us, you know, and I realize that there's limits there, but you know, it's never too late to start something. It's never too late to decide, hey, I'm going to get into, you know, something, you know, whatever. It's never too late to start. I mean, you look at people that have, you know, started things in their 60s and 70s and 80s, and they've ended up becoming icons in their own time. You know, there isn't an age that's like, oh, it's too late. There's never an age that it's too late. So you guys, you know, go find your hacky sack. I expect to report back in an hour.
Wow, an hour.
Well, report back in a year. So, you know, let me know what your hacky sack is.
Well, I don't know if it'll be an hour.
You probably already know what it is. You just don't realize it. You know,
Wait,
running your podcast is your hacky sack.
Speaking of report, pop quiz, Dave. What is the sport called? What is the sport called, David?
Footbag.
There you go.
Yeah. I told you I'd get it by the end.
Well, Derrick, again, I could ask you 1,000 more questions, but it is around the time where we do wrap. This was one of the most fun episodes I think we ever did.
Well, I'm really glad to be part of it. I'm really happy you guys asked me for this. You know, I'm always happy to talk to people and try it, you know, because I feel like I've got a message. I want to get it out.
Oh, man.
So I really appreciate the opportunity to do that.
I'm going to go on Amazon and buy Hacky Sack.
And then we'll have all the links to Derrick's social media. We'll have all the links to Post Sex Nachos social medias below. Also, if you guys could like and subscribe to our channel, that would also be amazing. And yeah, thank you again so much, Derrick. We really appreciate it.
Sure thing. Thank you guys.
And to everybody out there,
thanks so much.
And may the force be with you. All right, guys?
Yes.
See you later.
Everybody, good night.
May the hacky sacks be with you.
Yeah, the hacky sacks be with you.